Hear that? That's the sound of speechless. Like when you give her an unforgettable gift from Jared the Galleria of Jewelry. Whether it's one of the hundreds of new pieces in our collection, one of the exclusive pieces you can only find at Jared, or a custom piece we create just for you, Jared is the place to find the gift.
I love it.
That takes her breath away. And that's why he went to Jared.
Support for Fantasy Focus Football comes from Blue Apron. Blue Apron delivers farm-fresh, perfectly portioned ingredients and step-by-step recipes so you can make incredible meals at home. Rediscover how fun cooking can be while reducing food waste and supporting sustainable farms and fisheries. Visit blueapron.com/FFF to get your first meal, a $30 value, free with free shipping.
Our new presenting sponsor is ZipRecruiter. Are you looking for a smarter way to hire great candidates? With ZipRecruiter, 80% of employers who post a job get a quality candidate to the site in just one day. Try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/06010. That's ZipRecruiter.com/06010.
I went to turn the microphone off so that I could turn around, and before I could get my hand around to cover my nose and mouth, it came out. It was like a freight train. I couldn't stop it.
You're in the 06010. Never gonna hustle in case you didn't know. Matthew Berry, TMR.
You guys go ahead, give me grief for being on SportsCenter for 45 seconds.
I think you could do better than me because I don't think you could.
Jailbait, Field Yates.
You're terrible at hashtag improv. At Field Yates. At Field Yates.
Stephania Bell.
Oh, don't let Barry convert you.
Secret Squirrel, Daniel Dodd.
Make it happen.
Mediocre fantasy advice.
You're older than people realize.
That never stops.
Loyal 06010 listener.
Welcome into the Friday, Week 15 edition of the Fantasy Focus Football Podcast. My name is Field Yates, alongside Matthew Berry. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
What's going on?
Not much. You know what? Not cool Keith.
Okay.
Is fairly even keeled, would you say?
He is the definition of even keeled.
That's right. You know what he had this morning? Big old
breakfast?
smile. He had a big old smile.
I know why. I know what Keith was doing last night.
All right, give us a non-spoiler book report on Star Wars: The Last Jedi, which you took the wife and kids to last night.
Yeah, it was good. We really enjoyed it, and yeah, anybody's listening, don't worry, I'm not going to say anything that will spoil it. That's not my style. It was good. We were really entertained, and I think like anything else, I always come away a little bit confused about a couple things, which I'm sure is by design.
Right.
But,
it is by
were
design.
you confused? Were you confused at the end of the movie, or were you confused like during the movie?
a little bit of both.
Interesting.
So,
okay.
But then again, I'm also easily confused because I didn't go to a top.
Luke's
10
the
school.
good one. Did you know that?
Yeah. I've learned that.
Okay, good.
At the end
Got
of the
it.
movie, I was like, okay, Luke, good.
Got it. Yes.
Like that. Kyle, I had to tell Kyle that.
Understood. Yeah, fair enough.
No, but overall, we were really entertained, and for me, I'm pretty easy when it comes down to it. I like to go to a movie and just be entertained, and I was very much entertained, and the kids really liked it, so we all enjoyed it.
And the kids will be honest. Let's be honest, because they know the Star Wars stuff, and they're going to tell you.
Our 6-year-old daughter, she made it through the movie.
Wow, that's a miracle.
The last one, she fell asleep with like 15 minutes left. I mean, she was like just trying through, just couldn't get through it. So of course we had to watch it on
Because
DVD.
mine's super fidgety. Is yours? Like my 2 6-year-olds, like they can make it through, but like they want to get up, they walk around, they where's my popcorn? Like they're
kind of like you.
They're my daughters.
The genetics come into play sometimes. No, but she was really good, and there was a point in time where every once in a while she would just be like maybe about to like just trail off, and then something would happen that would be like worthy of excitement.
Yeah.
She was good to go. So I'll leave it at that.
Fair.
Awesome.
Well, as it turns out, the Lipscomb family got the Star Wars movie. The rest of America, Colts-Broncos.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. But one of the things that just struck me while Keith was talking right there was the fact that he said, like, look, hey, I'm easily entertained, which makes sense. That's why he's been assigned to this podcast.
Rewind. Fantasy news
from the National Football League.
This is the instant replay.
All right, let's get right into it and recap last night's game between the aforementioned Colts and Broncos. And for Denver, unfortunately, it ended up being a win, but a walking wounded situation after the game. As we know, Trevor Siemian left this game early, Stephania, with it looked
if you watch the video, you could see my thought, and you guys know I don't comment during the game on what I think the injury is for all the reasons that you might expect. But watching the video, it clearly looked like he dislocated his shoulder, which is kind of the mechanism for it. You saw sort of the deformity through the jersey. That is what ended up happening, and he is unfortunately done for the year. I mean, the poor kid, this is the shoulder he had operated on previously as well.
Yeah, so it's going to be Brock Osweiler, who's taken over as the quarterback the rest of the way.
It is Brocktober in Denver.
I don't know if my eyes are deceiving me if I'm getting old, but I see this. Brock Osweiler, 25.5 fantasy points last night. Can you believe that?
Well, he had the rushing touchdown on the one big run.
Yeah, he actually looked great last night. Like, as much fun as people have had with Brock Osweiler over the past couple of years because of that massive contract, the subsequent poor performance in Houston, the trade, the release, and now re-signing in Denver. He played very, very well last night. But let's get down to the stuff that matters, I think, in your championship game and going forward. We were cautious. As a matter of fact, I advocated to not start C.J. Anderson last night. Well, I was wrong. C.J. Anderson got 30 carries for 158 yards last night. No receptions. He had one target, but 15.8 fantasy points. That's more than sufficient if you decided to use C.J. Anderson probably in your flex last night. He looked okay.
5, 15, 22, 30. Those are his carries over the last 4 games after sort of messing with a committee. It seemed like in the middle of the season. It seems like they're now going more and more towards just using C.J. Anderson as a feature back. The thing that was interesting to me, however, I mean, you think about how this game plays out. Like, could they have been down to the Colts? Could they have?
They were down.
I mean,
to the Colts.
Right? They were down. That's what I mean. Like, so they're down 10-0. What I was going to say is, like, could they have gotten further down? Right? They were down 10-0 at one point. Could they have gotten further down? Who knows with Brock coming in? If Simeon doesn't get hurt, do they run it as much as they do? And listen, credit the Colts for not showing up defensively as well. So there's that. They do play the Redskins next week. Denver is at Washington, a run defense that is not particularly strong. So if you manage to get there next week, C.J. Anderson probably fairly useful.
Yeah, and Emmanuel Sanders had his best game in a while, 7 catches for 68 yards. He was hot early. He has not had more than 7 catches in a game this season, so good to see that from him. And Demaryius Thomas, 5 for 69. Those are the 2 Broncos wide receivers, of course, of most
Emmanuel
note.
Sanders injured his ankle, though.
Yes.
Again, and this is the same ankle that was the problem for him that cost him a couple of games earlier in the season. And you could just tell when he did it, he was really uncomfortable, tried to play through it, but ultimately left the game.
Pretty tender ankle, I'd imagine, for Sanders this morning. For the Colts, this game, 25-13, it was weird. They looked great early. 10-0 early lead. Jacoby Brissett has a rushing touchdown. Ultimately, though, this team kind of came back down to earth. Frank Gore finishes with 9.8 points because he had 10 rushes for 31 yards and 3 catches for 37 yards. Just before the end of the first half, he left this game with a knee injury, and the team said his return was uncertain. He did return, but anytime Frank Gore leaves, your radar goes way up because this is the most durable running back in the NFL. Stephania.
Sure, of course.
And the fact that he was back in there, I mean, he got hit. You saw he kind of got crunched. And so it was one of those situations where you weren't sure if it was contact thing. And you saw them evaluating him on the sideline, kind of looking at his knee and his ankle. But I think the fact that he got back in was a good, that's your takeaway. Yeah,
it tells you what you need to know about Frank Gore. He is certainly one of the toughest players in the NFL. And finally, T.Y. Hilton, 5 for 41. Again, if you started T.Y. Hilton, you were doing so because you wanted the opportunity to score 20 points, which we told you yesterday was a long, long shot. 9.1 points. Not going to crater your week.
That was better than I would have thought, to be candid.
Exactly. Not going to crater your week, but still on a massive performance from T.Y. Hilton. And Jack Doyle, 7 catches for 47 yards, nearly 12 PPR points. Not bad for that tight end.
Yeah, and by the way, worth noting, again, their next 2 games, the Colts at Baltimore and against Houston, both in the bottom 8 against defenses in terms of most fantasy points allowed to opposing tight ends. So should be a nice end of the season for Jack Doyle, who, is like sort of this borderline tight end one.
Yep.
He's better in PPR, obviously.
I just want to acknowledge Brandon Williams.
Yes.
People saw another scary sight when he went down, was put on a stretcher, taken to a hospital, and then you heard about a head injury. And they were talking on the broadcast, Mike Tirico, about him having a diagnosis of spinal stenosis. And so there was a lot of discussion around it. The main thing is that he was released from the hospital. Yep. He was diagnosed with a concussion. And the good news is that, he did get home from the hospital last night. And as far as his future, that's something to be determined later.
Always good to have some good news at the end of a night when it did look very scary for Brandon Williams. His backstory certainly well documented, and worth reading if you have not become familiar with that already to get more of a feel for what he is currently dealing with. So we wish him the very best in his recovery. Time now for some game previews. Game preview. We begin with the return of Aaron Rodgers. Now, as of right now, it is not official he's been activated to the 53-man roster because it couldn't happen until today. He did not return until to practice. Maybe even until 3 weeks ago, 8 weeks, whatever it was.
December 2nd, I think.
He returned, but you know something? I don't think he was put on the IR list until like a Friday of this week, whenever it was, all the way back that he actually got hurt.
All the way up to
so he
Friday.
has to wait until today that he gets activated, but we assume that will happen, and it's going to be the question that everybody is asking. What's the level of confidence you have, Matthew, in starting Aaron Rodgers this week, his first week back on the road against Carolina?
I have a lot of confidence, frankly, in Aaron Rodgers.
Yep.
Here's my analysis. You ready for this? Hashtag analysis.
He's good?
He's Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah. I'm with you.
Aaron Rodgers.
Well, here's the reason.
Again, he is Aaron Rodgers.
For a second, allow me this.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
It's not but this is not a conventional like Aaron Rodgers versus, I don't know, Derek Carr conversation. Yeah. I have heard from innumerable people that have said, "Hey, listen, I've got Ben Roethlisberger. I've got who's been red hot of late. I've got I don't know, even Russell Wilson, like or Tom Brady. Well, or Phillip Rivers, like you,
right? Yeah. So I'll say this. So it's interesting, right? Because you and I play each other in the semifinals of the Celebrity League,
right?
Here on the 16-team podcast Celebrity League that we have. I grabbed Aaron Rodgers and sort of stashed him.
Yeah.
And I also have Phillip Rivers. So that's a tough one to me. Like that's sort of a toss up here because they both have really good matchups.
Yep.
Obviously, so let's start about Carolina, who have allowed multiple passing touchdowns in 4 of the last 5 games, 8 of their last 11. They've given it the 4th most passing yards per game over the last 4 weeks. So this is a secondary that certainly can be thrown on.
Yep.
But then you think about the Kansas City Chiefs, who also have struggled in the secondary. I mean, they will get Marcus Peters back this week, but still, I mean, game is in Arrowhead. I have Aaron Rodgers ranked ahead of Phillip Rivers, but it is one of those things that's like, yeah, wow, in a semifinal game against a tough opponent field, which is what you are, am I going to start a guy off 8 weeks? I will say this. I think it is a true decision between Aaron Rodgers and guys like, as you mentioned, Brady, Roethlisberger, Wilson, Phillip Rivers. I don't think it's a decision between anyone else.
That's it. That's the Mendoza line for Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I could see somebody saying they'd prefer Cam over Rodgers.
Yeah.
But it's borderline. The question you posed to me at the start of this is like, what's the confidence level you have in starting Aaron Rodgers? And I have a lot of confidence.
It's significant. Yep.
It is significant. Look, it's his first game back. I get it, but he's just a special human being.
Sure, he sure is. He's one of a kind. He is perhaps the most talented player on earth. It's good to have him back this week. But the other part of this question, Matthew, is his favorite target, Jordy Nelson, who is a touchdown machine when Aaron Rodgers is on the field. All right, Aaron Rodgers is back on the field. How far does Jordy Nelson, who I think last week I had ranked at like 47th in wide receivers, how high is he climbing your ranks this week?
I'm at 15. So I'm as a mid-tier wide receiver too. At least he was at 15 before anything. I wouldn't have had anyone in the Thursday night game. But anyway, the mid-tier wide receiver too is what he is for me. When you think about Jordy Nelson and what he was doing, I think he was wide receiver 6 when Aaron Rodgers went down with the injury.
He was?
He was wide receiver 6 in the season.
He was?
And however, over the 41 games or the last 5 years that he has played, Jordy Nelson and Aaron Rodgers together, the last 5 years, he is averaging over 19 fantasy points a game in that 41 game sample. Be good enough for wide receiver 3 this year behind Antonio Brown and DeAndre Hopkins. So, yeah, I mean, we've seen a little bit more Devontae Adams. He's come on.
Yep.
And Jordy's looked a step slower. And yeah, Rodgers might be a little bit rusty, which is why Jordy isn't in my top 10.
Right.
But yeah.
He is a wide receiver too with a bunch of risk, and here's why. In the games that Aaron Rodgers started and finished earlier on this season,
right?
Here were Jordy Nelson's yardage totals. 79, 0, 52, 75, 24, and then he had 60 in the game that Aaron Rodgers got hurt. No more than 79 yards.
Right.
He had 6 touchdowns in the 5 games that Rodgers started and finished.
Also correct.
So there's a lot of risk baked in here. If he is not scoring touchdowns.
Again, and Thirsty Kyle, you can look this up. What is Jordy's touchdown per game? In the 41 games he's played with Aaron Rodgers, how many touchdowns does he have?
He's played many more than 41, obviously.
No, but the last 41. Over the last 5 years, it's 41 games.
Gotcha. Well, whatever. Okay, my point is this. There's still risk. When you're relying on touchdowns, there is still risk.
There always are, but my argument would be is that risk is lessened when you're talking about Aaron Rodgers and Jordy Nelson.
I agree on that.
I mean, if there's a duo that you're going to stack, if there's a duo that you're going to say hey, here's a guy that's got a pretty good shot at getting into the end zone, I would say it is Jordy Nelson. It's definitely risky, which is why, like I said, I have a mid-tier wide receiver too. Do you want to play a name game?
I think we got the idea on Jordy Nelson here.
Okay. Yeah. Just in terms of rankings. By the way, nice job, Thirsty Kyle, who immediately finds it. In 41 games, the last 41 games with Aaron Rodgers, 35 touched.
Yep. Jonathan Stewart had 3 touchdowns last week.
I just, to put one last fine point on this. So it's not like it's, 6 of 7, he got fluky or whatever. 35 and 41.
Sure. Listen, I'm probably starting him in a lineup that I have obviously not used him in 8 or so weeks. So sure. It's I'm certainly rolling the dice and hoping for the upside there. Jonathan Stewart had 3 touchdowns last week for the Carolina Panthers. What would the circumstances be that you are starting him? I would imagine it's probably, if you play in a non-PPR league, he'd be a reasonable flex option for me. But other than that, I'm still worried about the risk here.
Understood.
He's just so touchdown dependent is Jonathan Stewart, right? I mean,
well, he is touchdown dependent. I will say this. Look, if you're looking for a positive, you want to sort of hang your hat on him here, right? And you and I have him exactly at the same spot. We both have him, I think I'm ranked 1 spot ahead of him for you. But if you want to hang your hat on something on him, it is that he's had 15 or more carries in 3 of the last 4 games. They're giving him some volume in this particular, more recently, right?
Yep.
And it is a game that I expect to be high scoring.
Yep.
They're going to have to keep up with the Packers, I think, there. So if you want to hang your hat on that, only Todd Gurley and Carlos Hyde have more goal-to-go rushes than Jonathan Stewart this season.
Sure, I'm with you there.
He'll get a chance to fall into the end zone, but there's no question he is touchdown dependent.
It's funny that we talk about Jordy Nelson with more confidence and noting he's touchdown dependent, and then we say, well, we're not that confident in Jonathan Stewart because he's touchdown dependent. Yeah. Stephania, Greg Olsen, I just want to
Does Jonathan Stewart have Aaron Rodgers throwing to him?
He does not, believe it or not.
There you go.
Stephania, with Greg Olsen, in this foot injury, are we going to be talking about this every single Sunday?
We might be. What you saw last week, he got rolled up on. It was just sort of a weird thing that happened. He came out, got retaped, goes back in. Really wasn't an issue as far as keeping him off the field. I think the thing that hurt his value is he just wasn't that involved in the offense. So he was on the field last week for the majority of the snaps, but they just didn't have him set up to do much. So it's a combination of, is his foot hold up and can he get more integrated? And I can see why you don't have a ton of confidence. I don't think he's going to miss plays this week. I think he's going to have the same level of activity in terms of snaps on the field, but how much they utilize him. They talked about it. He talked about it being frustrated. They know they need to get him involved. Ron Rivera talked about that, but they also are saying it's not going to happen overnight. This is something that takes a while. He's been gone. It doesn't sound like the way they spoke about it when he first came back. And maybe part of their reluctance to count on him in the game plan is because of what happened when he first came back.
Well, Matthew has him on the hate list this week because there is so much risk baked in with Greg Olsen, which you can say that about a lot of tight ends, Matthew. But before the show, you made this analogy, Greg Olsen versus random tight end 2 in a vacuum, it's not as obvious as it would be under any other circumstances.
Yeah, you're basically hoping for a touchdown with a tight end, unless you've got a stud, right? So who's got a better shot at it? Is it Greg Olsen or is it Ben Watson against the Browns?
Yep.
And the Browns, one of the worst teams in the NFL against tight ends.
Sure.
Is it Greg Olsen or is it Ricky Seals-Jones? Redskins are also one of the worst teams in the NFL against opposing tight ends.
Understood. Yep.
So it's just sort of like those guys. Charles Clay.
Yep.
With Tyrod Taylor expected back here. Miami struggles against opposing tight ends. Or, by the way, conversely, Julius Thomas.
Right.
So it's one of those, I will just say this about Greg Olsen. You think about the Packers, who allow the second fewest fantasy points to opposing tight ends, and there's literally nothing that you've seen this year that would give you confidence in him. It's entirely about he was good last year.
I'm taking the Packers in this game.
I am as well.
Me too.
I am taking the correct team, which is the Panthers.
Ooh, interesting.
Daniel
Dopp. By the way, Mike Clay is the narrowest of edges going into this week over me. Okay, don't want to talk about that. Patriots and Steelers, one of the most anticipated matchups of the season. We begin on the New England side, where there's a clean slate in terms of injuries. You know, I guess nothing that really concerns you there, but the concerns probably on the Patriots side are, can you count on Chris Hogan and Brandon Cooks after last week, Matthew? There is a recency bias that certainly impacts how we make decisions in fantasy football. The fact that they played a national TV game where all eyes were on them has people thinking like, wait, Brandon Cooks, Chris Hogan, those guys looked average last week. Do you have any concerns on playing either one of them this Sunday in Pittsburgh?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't. I get it, but the fact of the matter is that the Steelers have been pretty brutal against the pass. They're 22nd against the pass over the last 4 weeks.
Okay.
It's brutal, the reason for it, but the fact of the matter is this is a different defense without Ryan Shazier. It's a different defense without him. And then, oh yeah, by the way, Tom Brady.
Yep.
I get it. The last 2 games haven't been great for Brady. He's still literally Tom Brady, the greatest of all time. My expectation is that he's going to have to throw. I think both teams are going to have to throw a lot. I think it's a high scoring game here. So Chris Hogan, who, got like 5 targets last week, played almost 90% of the snaps, almost had a touchdown if he could have got that second foot in. Like, I'm starting Hogan, and then you think about Cooks. Like, they give up the big play.
Yep.
The Steelers do. They really struggle in terms of a defense against the deep ball. The number 1 wide receiver against the Pittsburgh Steelers the last 4 weeks, all of them gone over 70 yards. All of them, they've combined to score 4 touchdowns. I have both Cooks and Hogan inside my top 20.
Yeah, we do think that Joe Hayden could come back this week for the Pittsburgh Steelers, which should help that pass defense a little bit.
Yeah,
a little bit. I'm not trying to change the narrative. I'm just saying people are going to wonder, hey, but they're back. Maybe it does not impact things enough for me to alter my decisions on Patriots wide receivers.
Right, you agree with that. Hayden's a nice player, but he's not the shutdown corner he once was.
This is not Jalen Ramsey returning to the Jaguars lineup. Stephania, is it for the Steelers? Juju Smith-Schuster all of a sudden has that hamstring that's bothering him again.
Yeah, I'm assuming it's the same one, although that hasn't been specified, but he was added to the injury report on Thursday, so obviously you want to keep an eye on him.
Remember the last time this popped up, it was I think on a Thursday as well, and it was a small hamstring issue or groin issue as described by Mike Tomlin. Well, it kept him out of the game on Sunday, so something to keep an eye on for Juju Smith-Schuster. That would likely mean more of Martavis Bryant if Smith-Schuster sat out in this game. Ben Roethlisberger, a difficult decision sometimes when it pertains to your quarterback spot, home road splits. He's at home. This Patriots defense for an 8-week stretch, Matthew, was terrific. 17 or fewer points allowed. And this past Monday night, in the most unlikely of events, allows 27 points to Miami. Should Ben Roethlisberger be ranked even higher? You've got him at 3 in your rankings, 5 in the consensus ranks.
I mean, if he's ranked higher, he would have to be above Brady or Russell Wilson. So for me, the answer is no. He should not be ranked higher.
Yeah,
I'm not doing that. But certainly, I have confidence in that. Averaging over 26 fantasy points per game since that Jaguars game, just that brutal 5 interception game against the Jags at home. So listen, I'm a believer in #HomeBen. And also, as good as the Patriots defense has played, they're gonna have to throw to keep up with the Patriots. My expectation is New England moves the ball in this game, so Pittsburgh will be able to as well. And listen, it is the highest over-under in Vegas as well. I think a lot of points get scored in this particular game. So, yeah, Ben Roethlisberger should have a really nice game.
I'll take the Steelers in this game. How about you?
I want the Patriots.
Stephania?
Yeah. I'm going to take the Patriots.
Alrighty.
I'm taking the Steelers.
Steelers at home for Daniel and I. What if hiring could be easier? More streamlined and less time consuming. What if is right. So even when you're busy, you can still be smart about the way you hire. With ZipRecruiter, you can post your job to over 100 of the web's leading job boards with just one click. So you can rest easy knowing your job is being seen by the right candidates. Then, ZipRecruiter puts its smart matching technology to work, actively notifying qualified candidates about your job within minutes of posting. So you receive the best possible matches. That's why ZipRecruiter is different. Unlike other hiring sites, ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on the right candidates finding you. It finds them. No wonder 80% of employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate to the site in just one day. And the easy-to-use ZipRecruiter dashboard lets you manage your hiring process from start to finish all in one place. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. Find out today why ZipRecruiter has been used by growing businesses of all sizes and industries to find the most qualified job candidates with immediate results. And right now, listeners to our podcast can post jobs on ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/06010. That's ZipRecruiter.com/06010. One more time. Try it for free. Go to ZipRecruiter.com/06010.
Hear that? That's the sound of speechless. Like when you give her an unforgettable gift from Jared the Galleria of Jewelry. Whether it's one of the hundreds of new pieces in our collection, one of the exclusive pieces you can only find at Jared, or a custom piece we create just for you, Jared is the place to find the gift.
I love it.
That takes her breath away. And that's why he went to Jared.
You can always count on Bud Light, just like you can always count on Always Game Gary. No bar is too far. No wing sauce is too hot. Not for Gary. Always Game Gary is famous among friends. He deserves a Bud Light. Enjoy responsibly. Bud Light Beer, 80 St. Louis, Missouri.
You're in the 06010. Focus. Fantasy focus.
Rolling along to our Monday Night Football matchup right here on ESPN.
I can't do both. There's only one fader, and
Let
then
it
I have
fade.
to. I'm sorry.
My bad.
Oh,
that's pretty rare for us.
Well, that's true.
There it is. It's the Buccaneers hosting the Atlanta Falcons on Monday night. A lot to play for Atlanta, who is still trying to stay in that NFC mix. Stephania, might they have their, I would say backup running back, but Tevin Coleman is not your average backup running back. He's a key piece of their backfield.
Like a complementary,
yes.
I would say.
Yep.
It's very unclear. Yesterday, Dan Quinn said he's still in the concussion protocol, and because it's a Monday night game, we only have Thursday practice so far, which obviously he did not participate. So it's always one of those where you may not know until the day before. By Saturday, you should have a good clue. But with the Saturday night games in the mix, or the Saturday afternoon and evening games, it makes it a little bit trickier.
As Matthew hawks a loogie.
It was amazing. As soon as Matthew did that, Stephania just dove out of the way.
Yeah. All right. So here's what happened. Fine. Look, all of a sudden,
cover your mouth,
dude. I was trying to I'm trying to turn off the microphone. It came quicker before I could get my hands around.
Let him do the microphone. You cover and protect me.
I turned away from you. I'm sorry. I couldn't get my hands around.
I show you one time what a sneeze looks like when you can see what the things do and where they go.
Anyways,
I apologize. I agree with you. In theory, I should have. I went to turn the microphone off so that I could turn around, and before I could get my hand around to cover my nose and mouth, it came out. It was like a freight train. I couldn't stop it, is what you have. But I apologize. Sincerely. Truthfully.
Stephania noted there's a lot
desperately.
Stephania noted there's a lot of uncertainty surrounding Tevin Coleman for right now, and you may not have an answer until Saturday afternoon, if not later, but we'll keep an eye on that. Certainly monitor reports, Stephania's injury blog, and I'm sure Shefty, amongst others, will have the latest coverage on Coleman's status as we get more information. In the meantime, I think there's a legitimate decision people might be having to make on Matt Ryan. If you look at the matchup, this might be the best matchup, or one of the best matchups a quarterback could have right now. The Buccaneers play horrible pass defense. They were shredded for nearly 400 passing yards by Matthew Stafford last Sunday. If you're playing in the playoffs still, it probably isn't because of Matt Ryan. It might be in spite of him.
Yeah.
Matthew, I ask you this. Do you have any confidence in starting Matt Ryan this week?
No. Confidence? No. Look, I think he'll be fine. There's a floor there with Matt Ryan, but I think there's two concerns here.
Okay.
Number one is there's generally a lack of upside.
Right.
Even in the game, even the last game against the Buccaneers, where, they put up a lot of points. Mohamed Sanu got one of the touchdown passes.
That's right. He did throw one of them, yeah.
And he has yet to have a game this year where he had 18.5 points. I mean, that's not a ton for a quarterback. 18.5 is a nice game, but it's not like a wow.
Yep.
37 different quarterbacks have had at least one game with 18.5 fantasy points or more this season. That includes Brock Osweiler from last night.
The Brock Lobster!
Not on that list is Matt Ryan.
Yeah.
Literally has not had an 18.5 point game this year. The other concern here, Field Yates, about Ryan is that do they get up big? I think they run all over the Buccaneers.
Interesting.
Well, listen, the Buccaneers are 23rd against the run over the last 4 weeks. They're one of the worst run defense is in the NFL. You think about last time they played the Falcons, and I think it was like, I'm doing this off the top of my head, right? But I feel like it was something to the effect of,
against the Buccaneers, it was 34-20.
Yeah, 30. No, but just I think they ran for 2 touchdowns, and I want to say it was something like 200 yards that they ran for as a team.
They ran for 148 yards.
148, close.
And they rushed for 2 touchdowns.
Only 52 off.
But Matt Ryan also had 317 passing yards.
Yes, he did.
One of his best days of the season. So
right.
That was the day that Julio went nuts, by the way. So
right. Correct.
There's some evidence to suggest this could be a productive day for Matt Ryan.
Oh, it certainly should. Again, I'm higher than you. I'm at 12.
I know. Listen, I am making the decision once again this week in the War Room League between Matt Ryan and Case Keenum. We will see what we decide.
Where are you leaning? If you had to set it right now, I
think as of right now, Matt Ryan's in the spot. But
wow.
Part of it is, again, we are playing the top seeded team in the league.
Sure.
Michael Smith, very strong, formidable team. And you need to consider the possibility of which one is more likely to maybe get, like, if one of those two quarterbacks were to have the 30-point outlier game, is it more likely to be Matt Ryan or Case Keenum? We don't know the answer right now. We don't know. But, it's something we're considering as we move closer to Sunday afternoon and, of course, Monday night. Mohamed Sanu makes the love list. He has been terrific over the past, 8 games. He has been really, really good with 11 points or more in 6 of those 8 games.
And you think about the Buccaneers who struggle against the slot in such a big way. Top 3 in the NFL in terms of most completions allowed, the highest completion percentage, most yards, tied for the most touchdowns. I mean, it is a position that has struggled for them in defense. And Sanu has been, quietly very strong this year.
For the Buccaneers, no injuries of note here, but there is a question mark. Listen, I don't think too many people were relying upon a Bucs running back in this game, Matthew, but if you had the opportunity to choose between Peyton Barber and Doug Martin, Peyton Barber you pick.
Yeah, that'd be who I pick.
Yeah.
Again, hopefully you're not counting on it and who knows, but he's been the best running back that they've had so far. Last 2 games, 35 carries, 160 yards, 5 for 46 in the passing game. Now, obviously, Doug Martin missed one of those games.
Yep.
But last week, they started with Martin, and then they're like, all right, forget this. And Peyton Barber came in, and Peyton Barber was the best running back on that team that day.
Yep.
So we'll see how that plays out. But, yes, if you're asking me pick one, I take Peyton Barber over Doug Martin.
I'm going to go with the Falcons in this game, 31-26, by the way. How about you?
I will. I like that as well. I'll take the Falcons. Although I probably should just take the opposite. I'm so far down and pigskin pick them.
How about you, Stephania?
Falcons.
Daniel?
I am also going to take the Falcons.
Just a side note, listen, I get it. You're frustrated with Mike Evans. He's still a top 16 wide receiver for us across the consensus ranks. I get the frustration. You're probably still going to play him. There are not too many players that are significantly better than him. Chargers and Chiefs, and a reminder, this game is on Saturday evening. There are 2 games on Saturday. This one and another one between the Bears and the Lions. Saturday evening is the game. Stephania, Hunter Henry has been battling that calf injury. Do we think impacts his availability at all on Saturday night?
I think you're going to have him. He's back to full practice 2 days in a row, so it doesn't look like it was a big deal.
Yeah, the team actually only had 1 player on their game status report, which is questionable or otherwise, and that was Casey Hayward, their cornerback, who's dealing with a hamstring injury, excuse me. But for these Chargers, Matthew, Phillip Rivers has been red hot, and all of a sudden he's got a very good matchup against the Chiefs. That's why you are deciding between him and Aaron Rodgers in the Celebrity League. Great option this week at quarterback.
It is. I mean, so again, Rivers, multiple touchdown passes in 4 of the last 5 games, 3 straight games with over 315 passing yards. And again, the Chiefs, they've struggled so much. They're middle of the pack against the pass over the last 4 weeks. But the fact of the matter is that they're the only team in the NFL to allow 3 different 30-point performances by opposing quarterbacks.
Yep.
So when they're bad, they're pretty bad. So I'm just right now I have Rodgers in, but I go back and forth with this one. To be honest, I have both guys as top 5 plays, so I don't think I can screw it up. I think both guys wind up with productive Sundays. But certainly, if you don't have that decision, I think Phillip Rivers should be in your lineup.
Alex Smith last week did not really meet expectations for a points total, although he did play particularly well. His wide receivers and pass catchers kind of let him down.
Yeah, I mean, some bad luck, obviously. Kelsey,
overturned touchdown,
right,
et cetera.
exactly.
So I don't want to say Kelsey let him down, but Demetrius Harris could have caught that touchdown pass.
Yep.
But this week, Matthew, that Chargers defense is no joke, as you know very well. So you've got him at quarterback 18 this week, a significant downgrade for Smith compared to where he's been of late.
Yeah, I mean, the Chargers are allowing the third fewest fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks so far this year. 10 of the last 13 games, or 10 of 13 games this year, they've allowed 15.1 or fewer fantasy points to opposing quarterback. They're tied in the NFL for the most such games.
Yeah.
And then you think about Alex Smith at the beginning of the year and just how hot they were. I mean, Alex Smith was the hottest quarterback in NFL, right, for the first 5 weeks of the season. Well, he played the Chargers during that stretch. I think it was week 3, 15.1 fantasy points.
Yep. And amongst those players that are going to be catching passes from Alex Smith, one of his favorite targets, Tyreek Hill, makes your hate list for week 15, Matthew.
This is about expectations. Here's a guy that's a top 10 fantasy wide receiver on the season. I have more as a borderline top 20 play. So my concern here is the deep ball, right? Again, if you think Alex Smith struggles, which I do, it would stand to reason. Part of that thing is because the production on Tyreek Hill is limited. And the Chargers lead the league in terms of fewest deep yards allowed, deep completion percentage, and deep completions allowed. It's such a good secondary.
Let me speak out of both sides of my mouth for a second, because I do have Tyreek Hill ranked much closer to 10 than you do.
Yep.
I also want to pass this little factoid aloud, or along. There's only one team in the NFL that has yet to allow a player to go over 100 yards receiving in a game this season. That team, the LA Chargers. They have significantly limited opposing teams' best weapons. This game is in Kansas City. I am picking the Kansas City Chiefs.
I'm taking the Chargers. Give me the Bolts.
Stephania?
Weirdly, I'm going to take the Chargers.
Okay. Daniel?
It's tough, especially since this is a Saturday game.
Right.
What is this?
Why does that affect your pick?
It's a different day. Saturday is a day earlier than when Sunday is.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Thirsty Kyle, what is this? What's this note? I don't understand.
Here's the thing: if you guys have a board bet on Tyreek Hill, if Tyreek Hill gets a touchdown, you win. If Tyreek Hill does not get a touchdown in each of the next 3 weeks, then Field wins. Right. I'm going to take the Chargers.
Daniel and I both picked the Chargers. We move along to the NFC West matchup, a critical one in Seattle. The LA Rams traveling there. Stephania, he says he's good. He says he's fine. But I think people are still a little bit worried about Robert Woods. When he says he's fine to play on Sunday, do you think that means we could expect a normal workload for him?
I think that's the plan. I mean, I don't think they waited the extra week to bring him back without that in mind. He just came back to practice at the end of last week, and I think there was a possibility that he could have taken the field, but the extra week gave him a chance to kind of do a little bit more in practice, get more involved, him have more confidence, the team have more confidence. So I can't tell you that it's for sure going to be the full complement of snaps, but I don't think he's out there protecting his arm, being a decoy. I think he's out there to play.
That's a good news. It's certainly good news right there, and it impacts the rest of the Rams pass catchers, Matthew, because Robert Woods, when he plays, the volume for Cooper Kupp or Sammy Watkins is bound to go down. So
100%.
Who I guess benefits the least, or who is hurt the most by Robert Woods' return amongst those pass catchers?
I think Sammy Watkins.
Okay.
You know, Kupp's out of the slot, so he has kind of a specific role, and they have certain packages for him. But my expectation is Watkins was really more up or down when Woods was sort of going on his kind of run there. So my answer to your question would be Sammy Watkins.
Sammy Watkins.
It would be tough to start him this week.
We've got him as a wide receiver 5 this week, 40th in my rankings. Cooper Kupp, right in that flex territory. We've got him just outside the top 30, and then your little Cooper Kupp.
Thank you.
Just outside of the top 30 for the Rams this weekend. And actually, Matthew's got Jared Goff in streaming quarterback conversation. That Seattle defense has not been as dominant without Richard Sherman, without, of course, Cam Chancellor of late. And Bobby Wagner, very iffy for this game. Bobby Wagner and KJ Wright. That might be the best linebacker duo in the NFL, period. And they're both hurting. Like, Bobby Wagner seriously might be the best defensive player in the NFL this year. So not having him would be a massive blow for the Seahawks.
And Sean McVay quoted earlier this week talking about how they want to get the ball in Todd Gurley's hands even more.
Yes.
Which would be bad news for you since you're playing Todd Gurley. It's weird. You're in the War Room League. You're against Todd Gurley. Yeah. Against me.
I've got 3 semifinals this week. 2 of them I have Todd Gurley on my roster. 1 of them I'm playing against him. So it's a weird. And Gronk, same deal. Like, I've got a lot of competing interests this week, as is the case in fantasy football.
Well, I'm rooting that. I hope Gurley does not have a big game.
Okay.
Since I'm playing against him in our league. I only care about our league.
Stephania, Mike Davis was banged up earlier on in the week. Do we expect him to be impacted at all?
Well, he's still just been limited in practice, so you're hoping that he's going to be back. But keep it to the Seahawks to have him be a late decision.
Right, that's right. And Matthew, he also makes your love list for this week.
Yeah, again, the fact that you can run on the Rams. They're giving up the 4th most yards per carry before first contact so far this season. 7 different times this season, a running back has scored over 21 fantasy points against the Rams. So my expectation here is that, here, Mike Davis, who has like 70 yards in each of the last 2 games. I mean, they've seemed to commit to him. He's looked good when he's gotten the opportunity. Again, I think you can run on the Rams, who are 27th against the run over the last 4 weeks.
Usual suspects beyond that for Seattle: Russell Wilson, Jimmy Graham, and also, who am I forget? Doug Baldwin. All them.
I misspoke on Davis. They actually upgraded him to full later. So
good news for them.
That was an earlier thought that he would be, but the Seattle comes out late. Sometimes they trick me.
So their reports come out at 7:45 here for us.
Right.
So.
And plus, you never really know exactly what they're doing because it's practice incomplete. But he ended up being a full participant.
I am going with the Seahawks at home in this game. How about you, Matthew?
Give me the Rams.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the Seahawks defense is going to be hurting. I say a surprise upset with the red hot Rams.
Could be a higher scoring.
Ram up.
And Robert Woods back.
Daniel.
Ram up.
I am also going to take the Rams.
All right. I am the lone dissenter here. The Eagles and the Giants, and of course, this is the first opportunity for the Eagles to play without Carson Wentz. Is Alshon Jeffrey at all limited?
Do you think are they thinking of it as an opportunity?
I'm a power positivity guy.
You really are. It's unbelievable.
It is amazing.
It's amazing.
That's why Field would make a good coach.
I'd like it to be contagious.
Yeah.
What are you saying?
And you're thinking positively that maybe someday it will be by week 17.
That's right.
Alshon was taken off.
Can you be an optimist and also a realist, or no?
I think so. I mean, I think when it comes to me making practical decisions, I'm pretty good at that.
Right.
But I also try to infuse. I just like to be positive.
And you're great.
Only got one shot at it, so I might as well make my life a happy one.
I think I'm optimistically real. I think so because when I think about run Field run, I'm a realist in knowing that Field won't let me put Vaseline on his nipples, but I'm optimistic that we'll reach $30,000 so that I could do that.
Nice. Very close.
Look at that.
Is that my opportunity to go check how far we are? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just interested.
Okay. Well, in the meantime, Stephania, can you tell us about Alshon Jeffrey while I get that total?
Alshon Jeffrey did not practice on Thursday, but it was because of an illness, not a soft tissue injury, the thing that we worry about the most with him. Although, to be fair to Alshon, he's been remarkably healthy this year.
He has. Has he missed a game? I don't think he's missed a game all year.
No, there was that one where he was questionable. I think it was a game-time decision, and then he played, and then we weren't that worried about him the following week, even though he was still on the injury report. And this week, it was an illness, and obviously, you don't know how you want to see him back on Friday, but as of this point, I'm not really that worried.
We are crushing like a grape on runfieldrun.com. $28,299.20. Less than, we're $1,700 away from our goal with like 17 days left in the regular season. For the Eagles, let's get there. Nick Foles could be the player that if you want to replace Carson Wentz, you're turning towards, Matthew.
Yeah. Especially given this matchup, right? Giants 28th against the pass over the last 4 weeks. They've allowed 6 different quarterbacks to reach 20 points this season. It's a fantasy-friendly offense. There's talented guys there. Zach Ertz has been cleared, obviously, so you're going to get Zach Ertz back. You get Alshon Jeffrey, obviously. Aguilar's had a very nice season as well. So Nick Foles, who's gone through the whole week of practice knowing he's the guy, he's gotten all the first-team reps. Yeah, I think he's a viable streamer this week. I am as a mid-tier QB2.
He has certainly had a lot of production. I was looking up at the graphics we flashed on the screen for those who are watching this on video. Over 9,300 passing yards in a career for a player that has been, for long stretches, of course, a backup. Alshon Jeffrey right outside. He's a top 15 play according to the consensus ranks this week. We have some confidence in Nick Foles. We also expect Zach Ertz to be back this week. He's been cleared fully from the concussion protocol, so that's good news for Foles. On the Giants side, Stephania, it's been a disappointing year for Sterling Shepard. Do you expect him to play on Sunday?
I think they're hopeful. Look, he was back last week, but he just didn't do much. If you saw him in that game, he was really limited in the offense. This was a hamstring issue that's been the most recent thing to bother him, and he's still on the injury report because of his hamstring, limited again on Thursday. So, yeah, I mean, I think he'll be out there, but I'm not sure that you're going to get a fully healthy Sterling Shepard.
Yeah, my confidence level is low. That Eagles defense might be the one that carries them on Sunday against a bad Giants offense. They placed their best offensive lineman, Justin Pugh, on injured reserve. it has been a season that's gone as far from planned as possible in New York. But there is a player that I think is somewhat interesting here, in Wayne Gallman. Wayne Gallman last week had a big-time game for the Giants. 12 carries for 59 yards and 7 catches for 40 yards. He was a waiver wire consideration this week. But it's a very difficult matchup, Matthew. Would you have the gumption to start Wayne Gallman this week in a championship?
I would not have the gumption.
Okay.
I'm gumptionless when it comes to Wayne Gallman.
You are without gumption. Okay.
I'm without gumption. He's a running back 4. I mean, I think I guess if I had to start a New York Giants running back in this particular matchup,
it'd be him.
It'd be him, but you think about the Eagles, who were so good against the run. They're third against the run over the last 4 weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, so you got a guy that's in a timeshare, even though he's probably the higher end of the timeshare. He gets the majority of the work here. Like, Darkwa's not going away.
I just wonder if maybe the pass catching of Gallman could be a factor again for a second straight week. Let's keep an eye on that. Again, I'm talking about like a super deep league flex consideration. But beyond that, you're probably not playing him.
You asked me if I had the gumption, and the answer is no. I personally do not have the gumption to play Wayne Gallman in week 15. I need more of a sample size. I don't love this matchup.
I am taking the Eagles. How about you, Daniel Dopp?
I am also going to take the Eagles.
Bird up!
Stephania?
Eagles.
There we go, all the way through. Cowboys, Oakland Raiders. This game is, of course, late on Sunday night. Looking forward to this one for Dallas. Nothing on the injury front here, but Dak Prescott sort of showed renewed confidence, Matthew, back inside our top 10 ranks.
Yeah, looked good. Looked like, frankly, Dak.
Yeah.
Right? And so you can't get a better matchup here. Raiders allowing the 9th most fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks, highest completion percentage, highest touchdown to interception ratio. They are a defense that has struggled throughout the year and underperformed.
Right, terrible defense. Yep.
Yeah, and again, this is the last week without Ezekiel Elliott. So my expectation is that Dak is a top 10 play this week.
Alfred Morris has run hard since taking over for Zeke Elliott. This is the final week, of course, that Alfred Morris and Rod Smith will be filling in. You feel like Alfred Morris could be a top 20 play this week, or a borderline top 20 play?
Yeah, I do. Obviously, I know Rod Smith had the couple of big plays, but Morris is going to get more touches in this backfield, I think, by a decent amount. And it's a nice matchup with the Raiders, who have allowed 3 running back rushing touchdowns over just the last 2 weeks, Field.
Yeah.
And so, they allow the 8th most yards per carry before first contact. Dallas, incidentally, getting the 8th most yards per carry before first contact as well. It's a good matchup here for a running back that has played well when he's gotten the opportunity.
Bill Parcells used to say, don't take the cheese. When his team was starting to play well, people would tell him how great they are. He would say, don't take the cheese. Rod Smith played really well last week, 33 fantasy points on 11 touches. I'm not saying he couldn't have 10 or 12 points this week, but my goodness, it would take, that's a deep league flex only for me and Rod Smith, even though he was awesome last week. 11 touches, but he got 16 of his 33 fantasy points on one play, that 81-yard touchdown catch out of the backfield.
I would agree with you. I have him as an RB4.
For the Raiders, Stephania, Amari Cooper feels at best like a long shot to play this week.
Yeah, I flat out don't think he's going to play.
Yeah.
Remember all the hand-wringing over whether he'd be active last week,
Right.
and the debate about whether he was ready, and he was barely in the game and had to leave because he aggravated the left ankle, has not practiced yet. He's not going to play.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to play as well. This game is late Sunday night, so you better prepare by making other plans earlier on in the day, maybe even as soon as Saturday afternoon with those 2 games. For the Raiders, though, this is a team that last year were so easy to assess week to week, right? It was Derek Carr as a solid starter for you. The running back, Latavius Murray at the time was a good solid play there. This year, it's similar. It's easy to assess. Not very many of them are starters, right? Like Derek Carr, 19th in our ESPN consensus ranks. The only 2 players you're starting with a lot of confidence are Marshawn Lynch and Michael Crabtree. Lynch has run hard recently. Crabtree could be the target monster because of no Amari Cooper. And I guess Jared Cook, just because tight ends are, there's just so little tight end stability.
I would just to note that Jared Cook was added to the injury report on Thursday because of his wrist. So just watch that.
Yeah, we will watch it. And if he goes, though, he could certainly be a viable streamer. Dallas has allowed over 18 fantasy points to tight ends in 4 of their last 6 games.
Yeah.
So Cook certainly on that, again, it's just so ugly at the position.
The Cowboys are on the road with a chance to go to 8-6 before Zeke returns. I'm taking the Cowboys here. How about you, Stephania?
I'm totally taking the Cowboys.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cowboy up.
Taking the Cowboys.
All right, moving along to the Tennessee Titans at San Francisco 49ers. This game, Stephania's fighting 49ers have been terrific of late. 3 of their last 4 have been wins.
Congratulations on blowing your draft pick.
I'm not worried. They did just fine in the draft last year, and clearly with the moves they made during the season, I think they know what they're doing.
All right, fair enough.
They seem to know what they're doing, that's for sure, in San Francisco. On the Tennessee side, Stephania, no major injuries that I'm aware of, right?
No, I mean, it's surprising, right, that we don't have a DeMarco Murray listed there, even with like a rest day. We don't have Rashard Matthews there. We've seen him on the injury report with his hamstring. It's clean.
Yep. And
clean.
Marcus Mariota, just to clean that up from earlier on this week.
Right. I mean, he was listed as a full participant, but there was never really any doubt that Mariota was going to be available for this week. I would say this. If you haven't learned by now, you're not going to get a lot of mobility points out of Marcus Mariota. It just hasn't happened, and this would only think that he's even just a little bit more compromised.
Amongst qualifying quarterbacks, he is 27th in points per game since week 6. No reason to start Marcus Mariota this week. As a matter of fact, there's only one Titan I feel pretty confident starting, and that's Delaney Walker. Matthew, this week you've got DeMarco Murray on the hate list.
No, I mean, first off, 49ers aren't like this pushover defense that everyone thinks they are.
What did you say?
Changing your tune.
Wait, can you repeat that, please? I think you said something that I have not heard yet this year. Go ahead.
Since week 8,
repeat it. What did you say?
Since week 8. They have been the third best defense against opposing running backs.
Yeah.
In terms of fantasy points allowed.
Right, yeah.
Top 10 in terms of yards per carry, rushing touchdowns, number of 20-yard runs. And DeMarco Murray, he's been terrible.
Yeah.
Like over his last 6 games, he's basically getting 10 carries a game. Derrick Henry has, to the eye test and by the numbers, is the better running back on this team. They prefer Murray in pass protection. I get it. But under Marcus Mariota, this offense has become completely stagnant and stale and bad. And they can't move the ball. And I hate it. I hate this. I mean, just listen. If you start DeMarco Murray, you're hoping he falls into the end zone. That's literally all you can hope for him because it hasn't been there for a while.
I tell you what, Jimmy Garoppolo is one of the popular streaming options this week amongst quarterbacks. He's 16th in our consensus ranks. It's a matter of what you believe is Tennessee Titans defense to actually be, because over the last 3 weeks, they've allowed just one passing touchdown. The problem is they've played Jacoby Brissett, Tom Savage, and Blaine Gabbert. You buying Garoppolo as a streamer?
I'm buying him as a streamer, but I mean, I think we have him right. 16. Again, like, I get it, but baked into my rankings at least, and I don't know how you are with this, but baked into my rankings.
Yes.
Is, sort of the risk factor. And are you really going to start Jimmy Garoppolo, who started just a couple games for the 49ers, in your fantasy semifinals? I get it. It's a great matchup. He's looked good. You figure some touchdown regression is coming the right way, but still,
basically,
I think he's a mid-tier. I think he's a mid-tier QB2. I think it's a risky play.
I think the only consideration would be if you rostered Carson Wentz and you're really grasping for straws here at quarterback.
Listen, he's clearly a good NFL quarterback, and it would not surprise me in the least for him to have a good game here. Again, so I have him ahead of some other bigger name established guys. I certainly prefer him to Marcus Mariota in this game.
Sure. Marquise Goodwin, speaking of players that have been good of late for the 49ers, inside our top 30, he has just been phenomenal. He's on the love list this week.
Since week 10, he's been the 15th best wide receiver in fantasy.
Yep.
Since week 10,
right.
Marquise Goodwin is the 15th best wide receiver in fantasy. 20 targets in Garoppolo's 2 starts. You think Garoppolo
on a per game basis, by the way. Yep.
Yeah. Not on a per game basis.
That is on a per game basis. What you were just talking about.
Marquise Goodwin.
Yeah. Of course, sorry. Yes, on a per game basis, correct.
This game is being played.
He's wide receiver 15 on a points per game basis since week 10. Yeah.
How about this? 49ers 3-10, Tennessee 8-5, and yet
you taking the Niners?
Not only am I taking them, they're favored in this game.
Wow.
Stephania, what do you got?
Garoppolo mania. I'm taking the Niners. Niner up.
You guys really wonder who I'm taking? Is it a question?
Yeah,
how many times have I picked to get against them this year? I think maybe twice.
I just want you to. You deserve the satisfaction of at least being able to say.
Yes, I know. I love
49ers.
the fact. I did not know they were favored, so you brought me some good news this morning.
Yep.
I'm taking the 49ers.
Moving along to the Cardinals and the Redskins, and last night we got some news from Adam Schefter. Stephania Adrian Peterson is heading to injured reserve.
He is. He has not been back on the field, was never medically cleared to return to practice. We saw that report from Josina Anderson earlier in the week that said he was going to get weekly scans, which that didn't seem, it didn't really make you feel confident about the diagnosis of what was going on. I mean, they had not given a diagnosis. It didn't seem like a course of action for somebody who is contemplating coming back this year. I think the bigger question will be when we get into looking ahead to next year.
Will he play?
And will he play, and whether, you could have any confidence. It's not insignificant to be 32 years old with a neck injury that's ending your season. So It's unfortunate for him because he got like a little second burst this year when he went to Arizona, but clearly this is not insignificant. And I think he's ended his season on IR 2 or, last year it happened.
Yeah.
And
maybe even 3 or 4 straight
I think
years.
it's 3 straight years. So
Plus, I think the year before that was the year he ended up on the commissioner's exempt list. I think that was 2014. The Cardinals are now going to turn to Kerwin Williams, Matthew, and he actually makes your love list.
He does. First off, without Adrian Peterson, now that we know officially, obviously, he's not going to play here. Arizona basically commits to one guy. Bruce Arians has basically said, you're the guy. So to one, whatever player it is, right? Since week 6, basically, whoever their lead running back is has gotten basically 90% of the running back carries over that stretch. So it's going to be Kerwin Williams. At least 16 carries, 70 rushing yards in each of the last 2 weeks. So you think about the Washington Redskins, who give up the 8th most fantasy points to opposing running backs since week 8 on a points per game basis here. They're 31st against the run. Literally, there's only one team that's worse against the run over the last 4 weeks. I just think you think about that kind of volume in a good matchup, hard to find. He's a very viable flex for the playoffs.
Yeah, former 7th-round pick of the Colts, Utah State, him and Bobby Wagner, 2 Utah State products. I believe they were teammates that back in the day at Utah State as well. The Redskins, Matthew, your beloved Redskins. Kirk Cousins makes the hate list this week.
Well, listen, just his matchup does. And it's not Kirk's fault. You know me. Pay the man. But the last 2 weeks, he's averaging 10.7 points per game.
Yep.
Since week 10, Arizona allowing the fewest fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks here. I don't know. I have him outside my top 10. I'm nervous about how poorly that offensive line has played. I'm nervous about there's no weapons around him. He's playing with practice squad guys out there. I mean, as a Redskins fan, I hope they bring back the coaching staff. I hope they bring back Kirk Cousins and sign him to a long-term deal. Like, I'm a believer, but this week, outside my top 10.
Will be difficult to envision too much out of Josh Dotson this week, as he could draw the Patrick Peterson shadow coverage. Of course, Jordan Reed was placed on injured reserve earlier this week, so Vernon Davis, amongst that group of tight ends, it just comes with a ton of uncertainty, but you might be forced to play that player because of the lack of depth at the position. This game is being played in Washington. I'm taking the Cardinals to go to 7-7.
I know, I'm taking the Cardinals too. It's weird. I had to look at it twice. Like, that just felt odd. Yeah. Especially, no Carson Palmer. They've had their share of lost players, but ultimately, Washington just...
Matthew?
I'm taking the Redskins because it makes no sense and because I'm down and pigskin pick them.
You got to do it. Daniel?
I am also going to take Washington.
What? Nice. How about that? Moving along to the Texans and the Jaguars. We know this much. For Houston, it will be TJ Yates as the starter, Stephania, because of the Tom Savage concussion from last week. As a matter of fact, the team is promoting Taylor Heineke from their practice squad, which kind of gave you the indication you needed to know about Savage's availability on Sunday as a backup.
Ryan Savage just has not been practicing at all this week, so no update on him.
It's a really tough matchup, Matthew, and it's a backup quarterback, a third-string quarterback in TJ Yates. Listen, I kid that he is related to me. We have no relation whatsoever. I like to root for people that have the last name Yates, however.
Sure.
Does this impact the value of DeAndre Hopkins, or does the matchup impact the value of DeAndre Hopkins?
I think I'm more worried about the matchup than I am TJ Yates. The volume share and target share is just so high here, but you're starting DeAndre Hopkins.
Right. That's the bottom line.
Just want to alert you to the fact that Hopkins was added to the injury report on Thursday as a do not practice. Like,
with a
did
toe
not participate
injury.
at all with a toe injury. So even though he's been out there and battled through some stuff already this season, definitely when you're an ad and you're a complete scratch on Thursday, it's worth noting.
Worth noting for DeAndre Hopkins, but should he play, you are still starting him, Matthew. Although the matchup stinks, he has just been unbelievable, averaging 22 fantasy points per game since the Deshaun Watson injury. He is remarkable. For the Jacksonville side, Stephania, Marquise Lee, a little bit banged up again, but he seems to always play through it.
He does always play through it. I mean, it's a foot issue, and it's been his knee all along, and that's where we've kind of gotten comfortable with, like, oh, it's Marquise Lee and it's his knee, and now it's his foot. So I'm paying a little closer attention because it's something different. But keep in mind he hasn't been held out at all this week, and usually he gets a day completely off. So I'm not as worried as I otherwise might be.
But Matthew, his quarterback Blake Bortles makes the love list this week. Boarding his way to the love list.
Bortling his way to the love list, indeed. 18.5 fantasy points each of the last 3 weeks. Russell Wilson, Blake Bortles. That's the entire list of people that have reached that threshold for 3 straight weeks. He's actually playing well.
Yeah.
I mean, just from the eye test, I mean, last 2 games, he's completing over 71% of his passes in field. I mean, honestly, the emergence of D.D. Westbrook, Marquise Lee having a nice season here, and obviously that run game helping set up play action. Yeah, Blake Bortles. I have him as a viable QB2 this week.
I'm with you, Matthew, who has played really well. He is the most popular Carson Wentz replacement this week, as was noted on the waiver wire column. I'll take the Jaguars at home.
I do want to just add Leonard Fournette. On the injury report, and did not practice at all Wednesday or Thursday, and it's not just his ankle. This is a quad issue, so that's why I wanted to bring it up, because it is something different. Fournette has said that he thinks he'll play, but he also said that he felt like he would need to practice on Friday to be more confident that he would. So,
wow.
If you happen to hear this before Friday practice, you're going to want to stay tuned and see if he's out there. So
great advice there. By the way, D.D. Westbrook, just want to make a quick mention. I love this particular stat. Since making his debut in Week 11, D.D. Westbrook now leads the Jaguars in receptions, targets, and receiving yards. Yep. You and I both have him as a wide receiver 4 with upside, but maybe some deeper leagues. D.D. Westbrook or DFS should get some consideration this week.
Certainly will be started in a bunch of deep leagues. I'll take the Jaguars.
Jag up!
Jags.
I'm taking the Jags.
Moving along to Cincinnati at Minnesota. Stephania, will we start with the Bengals running back situation? Do we think Joe Mixon will play on Sunday? Or Gio Bernard for that matter?
Well, you got some encouragement on the Mixon front because he did return to practice for the first time on Thursday on a limited basis. But obviously multiple steps to clear the concussion protocol and be cleared to return to action. So that was just the first step if he's out there Friday. Big thing in Cincinnati is that Marvin Lewis likes to guys have to have a full practice during the week if they're going to be active to play. So rare is the player that does not achieve a full practice and still take the field. So keep an eye on that. And Giovanni Bernard, you mentioned his knee. We talked about this. He had the ACL reconstruction coming into the season and then really upped his workload last week. So not really surprised that he was limited Wednesday and Thursday. I will be surprised if he's limited again today. I mean, I would expect him to bump it up in advance of Sunday.
If Joe Mixon doesn't play, Matthew, I still have some question marks about Giovanni Bernard because this matchup is that great.
Honestly, the Vikings lead the NFL in terms of fewest yards gained per carry after first contact. Mm-hmm. Okay? And so, they're not a team that, like, once they hit you, you go down.
Right.
Right? And then you think about the Cincinnati Bengals, who are 29th in yards per carry before first contact. So you're not getting a lot of blocking, and then once you get past the line of scrimmage, or once you get hit, basically, you're going down based on how the Vikings go. For me, I don't know, boy. It would be tough for me to trust anyone there. The running back of Cincinnati, whoever that is, or whoever, whichever players those are, they do make the hate list. They're both outside my top 20.
There you have it. All right, Matthew. So you're kind of trying to make the case for me. Case Keenum makes your, I just did it. Wow. Case Keenum makes your love list this week.
He does. Bengals have allowed over 250 passing yards in 6 straight games. And that's a list of like Mariota and Osweiler and Kaiser and Mitch Trubisky are among the people that have done that against this team. And so Case Keenum, who's been nothing short of fantastic. If his name wasn't Case Keenum, it was just like Joe Quarterback.
Yeah.
Like, and you looked at his numbers and his productions, you wouldn't be questioning this. It's only because he was terrible under Jeff Fisher. Whatever. You know what I mean? So was Jared Goff.
Right.
So was everyone last year.
Yeah. Well,
so there's been many years of people being bad under Jeff Fisher.
Correct.
Case Keenum was a very nice college player.
Yep.
People forget how good he played in college.
At Houston. Yeah.
Yeah.
Stefania, will he have one of his best targets out there though in Kyle Rudolph?
That's a legit question. I mean, Kyle Rudolph hasn't practiced yet this week. I figure I'm missing that kind of response from you. Kyle Rudolph in a walking boot after last week's game, not practicing Wednesday or Thursday. A lot of Vikings on the injury report this week. Yeah. And so, I don't think they're going to have much clarity on a lot of their guys until Friday.
All right. So keep it.
I mean, I wish I could offer you more, but the fact that he hasn't done anything, this is the point in the season, by the way, for all the people who are wondering, well, why don't you know? Why don't you know? Because at this stage of the season, a lot of teams, especially if they have postseason aspirations, will really rest players far more than they normally would. So the tendencies that a team would have where they might, it's down on Wednesday, up on Thursday, Friday, they'll change it when you get this point in the season because they're just trying to get through week 17. So, don't at me.
Don't at Stephania.
Don't at you.
Matthew prefers Latavius Murray to Jerick McKinnon. I prefer Jerick McKinnon to Latavius Murray.
Yeah, you're wrong. You're wrong.
Bet?
I'm right. What?
Fancy yourself a board bet?
I say Latavius Murray has more fantasy points in Week 15 than Jerick McKinnon.
I say Jerick McKinnon has more fantasy points than Latavius Murray in Week 15. Put it on the board!
Put it on the board.
Needed to get that one out. I pick in this game the Minnesota Vikings. Stephania, how about you?
Yeah, I'm going to take the Vikings.
Matthew?
Viking up!
Vikings as well. Daniel, who do you got?
Taking the Vikings.
All right, another Saturday game. Reminder, Saturday games this weekend. The Bears travel to Detroit to play the Lions. On the injury front, Stephania, the big question mark in this game is Amir Abdullah. We think he'll play on Saturday?
Well, if he doesn't, I think it will be not because of his health, right? Because he's been out there in practice every day this week, full participant, still listed there because of the neck issue. But last week there was a question. I think he only had a late practice during the week. And so even though he was reportedly getting better, we had heard that he was a healthy scratch. This week he's been out there every day.
Yep.
So if he does not play, that is a coach's decision.
We'll see. So if he does not play, that probably means that more Theo Riddick, who has been somewhat inefficient on the ground, but he's found the end zone a bunch over the past couple of games, I believe. He has 3 rushing touchdowns in his last 2 games. That's one more than he had his entire career prior to this.
Yeah.
For the Bears, it's easy. It's Jordan Howard. He's the one player that you're considering week to week. Yep. For the Lions, though, Matthew, Stephania gave us the goods on Amir Abdullah there. If he doesn't play, how much confidence do you have in Theo Riddick?
I certainly have more. I mean, I have him as kind of a mid-tier flex. I think he comes in at 26 in my running back ranks. I don't think I ranked Abdullah here. You mentioned the rushing touchdowns. And then you think about, just his volume in the passing game here.
Yeah.
And so the game is in Detroit on the turf, which I think plays to both Matthew Stafford's skill set and Theo Riddick's as well. So, yeah.
Gotta love these 2 wide receivers as well. They play indoors, at home. It's a good Bears defense, but still, Golden Tate, Marvin Jones, both inside of your top 24 wide receivers.
And worth noting, over the last 4 weeks, Bears 13th against the run, 21st against the pass. They're much more vulnerable in the passing game, which obviously is where Riddick does his damage.
I remember last week how worried we were about Matthew Stafford, and his hand was flattened and had clean marks in it. And now, full practice every single day. It's like it never happened. The guy's amazing.
He is a tough dude, that's for sure. I'm taking the Lions. How about you, Stephania?
Yeah, I'm taking the Lions.
Line up.
Restore the roar. Wait, no, it's One Pride. One Pride.
Restore the Roar is good, too. I like that.
Restore the Roar is not bad.
But you don't really know what your team is.
It used to be Restore the Roar, but now with Twitter, they've changed them all so that they have the little team logo afterwards.
Right.
It's One Pride.
One Pride?
Now it is,
One Pride.
That kind of works. The Dolphins travel to Buffalo to play the Bills.
You know what else would work?
What?
Lion up.
Technically, you are correct.
Yeah, that would work.
Or Lion win.
Lion win? Oh, I see. Oh, yeah, I see. Lion wait. Like the other team is prey.
Right.
Get it?
I got it.
If
like
you
you're lying and wait.
It's a lousy slogan.
He says you. What's your slogan? What's Stephania's slogan? Not a cone?
Brainiac.
Will root for team.
Stop.
All right, for the Buffalo Bills, there are a lot of injuries.
Bring me grapes. Bring me cucumber sandwiches.
Fandom for hire.
Yeah, exactly.
For the Buffalo Bills, there are a bunch of injuries here, Stephania. We start with the quarterback, Tyrod Taylor. He's chief amongst them.
And he's back doing plenty in practice. I mean, it looks like Tyrod Taylor should be ready to go, but they're still not making the call. And Nathan Peterman back in practice on Thursday. So, it's a little bit cloudy. I will say this, Joe Webb back in the blue offense jersey as opposed to the quarterback jersey. So they have enough confidence that it's going to be Taylor or Peterman. It sounds like it's going to be Taylor, but I don't think they're going to declare it until later today.
We'll keep an eye on that one. Obviously would be good news for the rest of the Bills pass catchers. But how about Kelvin Benjamin, Stephania? And was LaShawn McCoy a little bit limited earlier on this week too?
He was. I mean, LaShawn McCoy's been on the report because of his knee, and obviously we saw how many yards he racked up last week. So I kind of expect him with the veteran soreness, and they've done this throughout the year. So I'm not really alarmed about LaShawn McCoy. I think that's more of the veteran management. Kelvin Benjamin, obviously, we talked about his meniscus tear wasn't going anywhere. He was still going to be affected by it, and he did appear to tweak it during the game. So that's going to be an ongoing problem, I think, for him for as long as they keep playing this year.
I have a hard time trusting Kelvin Benjamin this week. He comes in at wide receiver 45 for me prior to the Thursday night players being removed. For Miami, though, you got to love Kenyon Drake. Matthew, he has been terrific, and he makes the love list this week inside your top 12.
So a joke we did on the fantasy show was a couple of days ago was, you know what? Kenyon Drake has been so good. Actual Drake might become his fan.
It's true.
Which I thought was just a great joke that I did not write. We have a writer on staff who just does an unbelievable job. So we have a lot of fun. Kenyon Drake's been nothing short of fantastic, right? Third most yards per carry after first contact last 2 games. He since basically Damian Williams went down, right? This is the last 2 games. Second most carries among running backs, second most rushing yards, 6th most receptions, 5th most receiving yards, 5th most fantasy points. Without Damian Williams, he's literally the 5th best running back in fantasy, and he's been a top 10 fantasy running back since the Jay Ajayi trade.
Sure.
And now he gets a matchup against a Bills team that allows the most fantasy the most points to opposing running backs on this year. They've allowed 135 running back rushing yards in 5 of the last 6 games. Field.
Yeah.
You know, what do they want? What are they going to do? Let Jay Cutler throw it? This is going to be the Kenyon Drake show on Sunday.
I know it sounds crazy to mention this, but because a lot of people have asked, there's not going to be snow on Sunday, according to the current forecast in Buffalo. So that's a good thing there for that Bills and Dolphins game. Jarvis Landry also has been remarkable for the team this season, the only player with at least 5 catches in every single game. I will take the Dolphins in this game. I'm a little nervous about it, though, but I'm taking the Dolphins. How about you, Daniel?
I will also take the Dolphins. I am also nervous because of the cold, though. Yeah. I got to be honest.
I'm going contrarian here. Bill up!
And it's weird.
The return of Tyrod.
One less day to rest after this big performance. Yeah. Letdown in Buffalo. Yeah.
Classic
I guess I'm going to take the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, warm weather.
I don't feel great about either one.
Go to Buffalo in December?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ravens and Browns here, Stephania, for Baltimore. Mike Wallace has been banged up of late. He also played pretty well. What do you think about his availability for Sunday afternoon?
Well, it's definitely concerning that he hasn't been out there, but he says that he's going to play. I mean, he was very confident speaking yesterday to reporters. I think he said something like 99.9% of him. So, he made it like, look, I've played through stuff before. This is not a big deal.
Right.
And really tried to put everyone at ease that he will be out there.
All right, well, that's good news there for Mike Wallace. Not that you're necessarily starting him in a bunch of leagues, but
he's a wide receiver 4 with some upside here. Right. It's certainly not a bad matchup with the Browns.
Right, it certainly is not a bad matchup with the Browns. Alex Collins is really the Raven you're focused in on most right now. Top 10 running back for you this week, Matthew.
Well, of course. Since week 11, he's the 5th best running back in fantasy in terms of total points. The Cleveland defense has allowed the 7th most running back fantasy points per game, the 11th most yards after first contact per carry since week 8. Yeah. So Alex Collins, who's been nothing short of terrific, again, like you watch the eye test. He runs with power. He is agile.
Yep.
He's a better pass catcher than he gets credit for. Danny Woodhead coming back hasn't been a factor here. We talked about this on Monday, I think, but he reminds me of beast mode. Just in terms of both the agility and the toughness, the running with a reckless abandon.
Sure. Yeah. He's been awesome. He actually kind of looks like beast mode too with, just the whole demeanor, like the physical demeanor and, the visor, which Marshawn Lynch, the two have that, the tinted visor, which, Collins actually said he wore because of migraine, to help offset migraines, I guess, which.
Well, you have light sensitivity. It certainly would make sense.
Yeah. So those two players have been running really effectively of late. Deshaun Kaiser, Matthew, you have him at 17 in your quarterback rankings. You have a lot of belief in a guy who's facing a defense that has been second best in terms of allowing quarterback points this season.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, we've talked about this, right? I mean, his rushing, keeps his floor high. And you think about what Deshaun Kaiser has done since Josh Gordon got back.
Yeah.
Multiple touchdown passes in each of the last couple of games here. I like Deshaun Kaiser. I mean, again, you didn't rank him at all. I'm inside my top 20. I have him 17th.
Yeah.
But
trying to will your way into a board bet is what you're trying to tell me.
Well, yeah, I am. When we talked about him last week.
All right.
You want to You didn't rank him at all. There are 32. We ranked 25 quarterbacks.
I think he has now made the ranks after the Thursday night adjustment. So
I say DeShone Kizer is a top 20 fantasy quarterback this week.
We have enough DeShone Kizer bets to move on.
What's one more?
It's not worth it.
There really are a lot of DeShone Kizer bets. I'm not gonna lie.
It's getting lame. For the Browns, Josh Gordon.
Okay, first off, if we're gonna stop for 1 second, if we are gonna make a rule on this podcast that we can't do anything that's getting lame, we literally won't have a podcast.
No, getting late.
Well, lame and late.
Oh, I thought
I said you said lame. Didn't you say lame?
I did say lame, yes.
Oh, yeah.
You
said,
lame.
it's getting lame, all the DeShone Kizer board bets. And I'm like, if that's the rule that we're going to say, like, oh, we can't do that, it's getting lame, like, we won't have a show.
Right. No, I'm okay with...
That's on... Getting lame is on brand for us.
Okay, got it. Passing on the DeShone Kizer board bet. I liked our Latavius Murray. Jerick McKinnon one much better earlier on in the show. Josh Gordon has been pretty good for the Browns in his 2 games back, 17 targets, but it's a good Ravens defense. Although, is it that good? Because we saw the Ravens just get lit up by the Steelers last week.
Exactly. I mean, Ben threw for over 500 yards. You know, the loss of Jimmy Smith is significant.
Right. MVP is Jimmy Smith, right?
Yeah.
Seriously. Yeah, helped his credentials after last week's game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. All right. Believe it or not, I'm taking the Browns in this one. No, I'm sorry. I'm taking the Ravens. Daniel, did you just go fist pump because you wanted to?
I am taking the Cleveland Browns.
Are you really? Wow. That is
fortune favors the bold. You want to know why? Because the Detroit Lions are going to hold the 0-16 record for another year after 2017. The Browns get off the schneid. What's a schneid, by the way?
No one knows. It's fine.
It's a good question.
Are you going that bold?
Did you pick them to beat the Packers too? The Browns to beat the Packers?
I did.
Yeah. How'd that work out?
That was heartbreaking, man.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Stefania, how about you?
Ravens.
Matthew?
I'm not delusional.
Raven up!
Last game here, the Jets at the Saints. On the injury front, Stefania, the big question mark in this game is Alvin Kamara for the New Orleans Saints.
I know. He says he's going. Now, he has not officially been cleared that we are aware of, but he has been fully practicing this week. And so if he's cleared to play in a game, then yes.
I think people are wondering, though, Stefania, like, is there a scenario where you could fully practice and then not be cleared still?
Yes, because I believe, did Zach Ertz, was he limited or full? Either
think he
way.
might have been limited, yeah.
But yes, you can be, because ultimately you can be cleared to return and you can be cleared by the team personnel to participate even in contact drills. But it depends when that independent neurological consultant phase comes in. And so it varies a little bit depending on teams. And so there is a scenario where you can be doing some things but still not be cleared for full, everything off, return to play.
So it sure looks like he's trending in a positive direction.
Correct.
However,
hang on, let me just do a deep dive in terms of analysis here. You should start him if you can.
Thank you. We'll keep an eye on whether or not he actually returns this Sunday.
#analysis.
Stefania, for the Jets, we think Matt Forte is a game-time decision. Is that correct?
Yes, he is a game-time decision. The only other thing I want to point out is Michael Thomas got poked in the eye last week.
Right.
And you may have seen he came off and he looked to be in a great distress. I mean, I'm sure it was terribly uncomfortable. He has been fully participating. He's going to wear a visor this week. He said he's surprised he hasn't had an injury like this before. I'm just curious. This is different. It's different when guys wear a shield over their face for the first time. It's a little bit darker. He's coming off getting poked in the eye. Does that change how you feel about Michael Thomas?
I think I'm still starting him. I feel like I've got him at 3 in my ranks. As a matter of fact, Matthew does as well, as do the consensus ranks. So I do feel good about him in a good matchup at home, but I'm going to be keeping an eye, no pun intended, on Stefania's note about that visor.
Starting Michael Thomas, even at less than 100%, is better than a poke in the eye.
So Robbie Anderson this week, Matthew. No Josh McCown. He's a top 30 play for you, but you're still nervous about it.
I'm certainly nervous about it, but my expectation is I think you see some junk time here. He did seem to have a connection with Bryce Petty at the end of last year. I think they're gonna take some shots because I think they're gonna have to.
Yeah.
So Robbie Anderson, who's getting such a huge target share of the wide receiver looks for this team.
Yep.
Yeah, a top 30 play for me, but no doubt I certainly wouldn't feel super confident about it.
I am taking the Saints in this game. How about you, Stefania?
Saints.
Matthew?
Saint up.
Daniel.
Definitely taking the Saints.
Beignets for everybody. All right, that does it for our show. We, of course, will be back with you on Monday, but before that, you've got Matthew Berry's Fantasy Show at 5 o'clock today on ESPN2.
Yep.
You also have Stefania's injury blog, which will pop out Is a special time tomorrow, Stephania?
Well,
or no?
there'll be something by tomorrow, at some point by tomorrow for the Saturday games, and then the usual later one for the Sunday games, because we are going to split it up.
2 separate reports with the early starts. Get your lineup set before Saturday afternoon. 4:30 is kickoff time for the Bears and the Lions. Or is it 4 o'clock? At some point early on Saturday afternoon, so please have your lineup set accordingly. It's 4:30, Daniel Dopp tells me. Fantasy Football Now also comes to you live 10 a.m. Eastern Time on ESPN2 on Sunday. We will get you set for the playoffs. Playoffs? They continue. In the meantime, follow everybody on social media. We talked about this yesterday. Like, it actually matters when you follow us on social media. Helps us interact and stay, stay a part of the narrative for you during the offseason when you have fantasy questions about keepers, injuries, draft picks, etc. Stephania B87 on Instagram and Stephania_ESPN on Twitter. Matthew Berry, TMR, everywhere on social media, except for the Fantasy Life app where it's just at Matthew Berry. I'm at Field Yates. We'll talk to you guys Monday. Peace out!
The theme song of the Fantasy Focus was created and performed by Eric Hutchinson. Check out more of his music at erichutchinson.com. Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Focus Football Podcast. For more great podcasts, listen on the ESPN app or subscribe on iTunes.
You can always count on Bud Light, just like you can always count on Always Game Gary. No bar is too far. No wing sauce is too hot. Not for Gary. Always Game Gary is famous among friends. He deserves a Bud Light. Enjoy responsibly. Bud Light Beer, AB St. Louis, Missouri.